The camera pans slowly across a silent television studio. LED lights flicker on the sides, and the screens display cold, impersonal graphics. A faint background noise, perhaps an air conditioner, perhaps the hum of lights, accompanied the muffled sound of footsteps echoing across the shiny marble floor. The room was nearly empty, except for a figure sitting calmly in one of the armchairs on the main set. A man with a serene expression, simple clothes, and an introspective gaze. He watched the movement around him without saying a word, as if he were just another guest among many. The director shouted orders in the background. Cameras were adjusted. Microphones were tested. The lead journalist, a man in an expensive suit, meticulously combed hair, and a certain gleam of arrogance in his eyes, hurriedly reviewed his notes without even looking at the guest. "Who is that again?" he whispered to the producer next. To him. "A spokesman for some militia, I think," she replied indifferently. The man, sitting there, listening to everything in silence, just smiles from the corner of his mouth. His presence doesn't draw attention, yet there's a tension in the air, the kind that you only notice later, something subtle, almost imperceptible, like the held breath before a storm. The camera finally positions itself in front of him. A slight signal from the director, and the live broadcast begins. The television screen lights up in the homes of thousands of people, and there he is, sitting calm, mysterious. No one in the studio knows that they are about to witness a moment that will be remembered for generations. A moment where true power doesn't shout, it whispers. The journalist adjusts his tie and leans forward slightly, looking directly at the camera while presenting the program with a forced smile. In a few seconds, his tone changes. He turns to the guest, still unidentified by the audience, with an expression of condescension. "So, sir, Ibrahim, right?" he says, emphasizing the name with disdain. "Please explain to us what exactly your organization is trying to do in Burkina Faso." The word organization sounds like poison in his mouth, full of contempt, as if he were speaking to someone without legitimacy. The studio falls into a brief silence. Some technicians exchange discreet glances. The interviewee remains calm, without reacting. The journalist continues, this time with a more incisive tone. "Because, you see, many consider your actions reckless, even radical. What kind of military or political training do you have to assume any leadership position? The provocation is clear. He is not there to listen, but to discredit. His posture, the way he crosses his legs and raises his eyebrows, shows that he has already judged the man in front of him before the interview even begins. A barely audible chuckle escapes his mouth as he looks at the file in his hand, pretending to read something important. "They say you are too young to understand what it means to govern. Some say you are just taking advantage of the chaos." The camera zooms in on the guest's face. No change in expression, still no words, just that same calm, serene look, and deeply aware of everything that is happening. The tension grows, but the protagonist remains silent. For now, the journalist, confident in his performance, raises his voice slightly, trying to press. "If I may be direct, Mr. Ibrahim, why should anyone take your word seriously?" The camera alternates between the two faces. The interviewer, with a sarcastic glint in his eyes, the guest, serene as if he had been waiting for this moment from the beginning. Finally, he leans into the microphone. His voice is calm, firm, and deep, like muffled thunder before the storm. "Perhaps we should start by clarifying who I really am." The journalist tries to maintain control, but his slight discomfort is evident. Before he can formulate a response, an unusual movement begins outside the field of vision. The muffled sound of boots approaching. The side door of the studio opens discreetly, and two members of the presidential security team enter silently, positioning themselves next to the guest. A third man hands something to the director, an official credential with the golden seal of the presidency. Whispers echo among the members of the team. The journalist turns around, confused. The director quickly approaches the journalist and whispers in his ear. His face turns pale. His eyes slowly widen. He looks at his guest again and notices, as if for the first time, the weight of that calm gaze. The journalist swallows hard. "Mr. President Traoré," he stammers. The studio is plunged into an almost sacred silence. The farce is broken. The man he tried to humiliate in front of the entire country is the president of Burkina Faso himself, and he has faced him the entire time with dignity, without saying a single word above his tone. True authority has asserted itself, not with shouts, but with presence. The journalist remains motionless for a few seconds, as if time has stopped. Sweat runs down the side of his face, which was previously perfectly made up. His expression of self-confidence dissolves, replaced by a look of contained despair. He tries to compose himself, straightens his jacket, forces a nervous smile, and stammers, "Pardon me, Mr. President. I was not aware of your presence in an official capacity." But the damage has already been done. The audience watching at home, the members of the production team, and, above all, Ibrahim Traoré himself, they all saw it. They all felt it. Some members of the team in the studio avoid looking directly at Traoré. Others disguise their embarrassment with mechanical gestures, adjusting already adjusted equipment, feigning busyness. The producer, who minutes before had called the president a malicious spokesperson, now holds the headset with trembling hands. No one dares to speak. The journalist, in a last attempt to save himself, tries to reformulate his questions, this time with an overly formal, almost servile tone. But the moment no longer belongs to him. Traoré, for his part, remains impassive. His posture remains firm, his gaze unchanged. He does not display arrogance, nor does he seize the moment to retaliate. The true answer has already been given with the revelation of his identity, and with the silence that accompanied it. His gaze sweeps across the studio, and without saying a word, he communicates everything. The lesson has been taught. Those who judge by appearance, name, or age are rarely prepared to face the truth when it imposes itself with dignity. The journalist, now visibly shaken, tries to regain control of the program, but his words sound empty. The glow of the studio no longer has the same strength. The silence between the questions and answers becomes denser, more charged. It is as if everyone has understood in unison that something profound has just happened, something that will not be forgotten any time soon. The camera, previously restless, now remains fixed on Traoré, as if trying to capture every detail of his calm and commanding presence. He finally answers in a low, clear voice, "We are not here to impose ourselves with titles, but to serve the people with truth. No confrontation, no retaliation, only the firmness of someone who knows who they are and where they came from. In times of crisis, those who shout the loudest often hide the emptiness, but those who walk in silence often carry the weight of a continent." The phrase hangs in the air like a manifesto. It is more than a response to the journalist. It is a call to conscience. A reminder that respect should not be conditioned by appearance, age, or titles, but rather by the essence, courage, and truth of who one is. The broadcast ends. The red light on the camera goes out. But on social media, in homes, on the streets, that moment spreads like wildfire. A leader had spoken, not with fiery speeches, but with posture. Not with empty promises, but with example. Traoré slowly stands up, greets the team with a respectful gesture, and leaves the studio as he entered. Silent, humble, but leaving behind him an echo of transformation. The final message appears on the black screen. Respect is not demanded. By shouting, it is earned with dignity. The new sun of Africa has risen. What happened in that studio was not just a clash between a presenter and a president. It was the silent representation of centuries of underestimation, of external impositions, of African voices silenced or distorted behind microphones that were never intended for them. Ibrahim Traoré, by not imposing himself through force or arrogance, symbolically recreated the image of an African leader, no longer one who shouts to be heard, but one who keeps quiet so that the world can hear. He became there the mirror of an Africa that is tired of being treated as lesser, until it reveals itself to be greater than anyone imagined. The TV studio, with its cold lights and formal structures, becomes a symbolic arena. A space where traditional power, represented by the journalist and his colonial stance, is confronted by a new, firm and popular leadership. The initial indifference to Traoré's presence echoes an old habit of ignoring what comes from the people, from the periphery, from the black youth who think, organize, and govern. And when his true identity is revealed, it is not just the journalist who is shocked. It is the entire structure that finds itself facing the inevitable. The rise of a new African consciousness. Every gesture of Traoré in this scene carries profound meanings. The silence, the calm, the firmness in his gaze. It is not a lack of reaction, it is wisdom. It is not weakness, it is control. In a culture where respect is often accompanied by ostentation, he shows that true power does not need to be announced. It imposes itself. That is why this scene transcends the studio and becomes a symbol, because in every second of it there is history, there is resistance, and above all, there is rebirth. Immediately after the broadcast ended, social media went into a frenzy. Excerpts from the video, especially the moment when Traoré revealed his identity, were cut, edited, subtitled, and shared within minutes. Hashtags such as Respeite Traoré, Des Novo Sol d'Africa, and Voz do Povo took over Twitter and TikTok. Thousands of young people, not only from Burkina Faso, but from all over Africa and the diaspora, recognized something greater than a moment on television. They recognized an affirmation of identity, respect, and legitimate power. Memes and montages emerged, contrasting the journalist's arrogant expression at the beginning with his pale face at the climax of the interview. But beyond the humor, the dominant tone was one of pride. Many shared personal stories about how they were underestimated in their jobs, at school, in positions of power. For them, seeing Traoré maintain his composure and return the disrespect with dignity is an act of silent reparation. It is as if, for a few minutes, every invisible young black man had been represented in that studio. Influencers, activists, and even artists have spoken out. Reaction videos, political analyses, and emotional comments have flooded YouTube and Instagram. On local radio shows, old community leaders have said, "This young man represents us." In schools, teachers have turned the incident into a topic of debate. On the streets, murals have begun to appear with the image of Traoré sitting in an armchair, calm, with the caption, "The man who didn't need to shout to be heard." The impact has gone beyond politics. It has been cultural, it has been spiritual, it has been popular. The camera flies over the city at dusk. The sky of Ouagadougou, tinged with orange and red, seems to reflect the flame burning in the hearts of the people. The narration returns slowly in a deep and reflective voice. In a land where youth has always been discredited, a young man stood up. And he didn't need to shout, he didn't need to clenched fists or make empty promises. He just had to sit down in front of a blind world and let the truth do its work. The image cuts to popular streets where children play, young people discuss politics, and walls bear phrases of hope. The people don't just see him as president. He is now a symbol. The soundtrack rises slightly. An African instrumental theme with deep drums and soft strings accompanies the last moments of the video. We see flashes of his solitary walk out of the studio, followed only by his bodyguards. Not a word spoken, no forced reaction, just the greatness of someone who knows the weight he carries. What Ibrahim Traoré taught us was not just about leadership, it was about courage. It was about knowing that even when the world tries to reduce us, there is a force within us that is greater than any TV studio, any arrogant microphone, any prejudice disguised as journalism. The screen fades to black. The last words appear in white letters on a black background. A new chapter of Africa is being written, and this time the pen is in our hands. Fade out, the end.